Democracy is not a spectator sport. This is a favorite slogan of the League of Women Voters, a group begun 90 years ago to help educate newly enfranchised women who had finally won the right to vote. Today, the League in Lexington continues to inform citizens about public policy through their voter information programs and other activities. All are welcome at the League's First Friday forums featuring programs of interest to residents. Topics range from Lexington's biotech companies to the town's changing demographics to helping our youth at risk. The Lexington League of Women Voters welcomes your interest and participation. For more information about membership and programs, please visit our website.
With three unopposed candidates, Melinda Walker for the Housing Authority, and Scott Bogan and Eileen Jay for School Committee. If they would come forward and take their places now. So, now that we're all here, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Margaret Copey. I'm the convener of the Lexington League of Women Voters. I want to welcome all of you tonight. I also want to welcome Ellen Hardy. Ellen Hardy has been the moderator for our candidates night here in Lexington. We've tried to figure out for at least the past 15 years. So we've gotten to know her and she's gotten to know us. She's the former town moderator in Westford, 25-year town moderator and longtime league member, right? Since it began in Westford. So Ellen, welcome, and she will now do the rest of the evening. Thank you. Thank you so much. So the format for this evening is that those residents who are running unopposed for re-election or for election will have an opportunity to introduce themselves to you, but there will not be a question and answer or a closing statement. So first we will do the two boards that Margaret mentioned, and then we will go on to the unopposed race for Board of Selectmen. And then we'll get on to the contested races, which is one for a vacancy on the Board of Selectmen and one for the Planning Board. Just to let you know that the League of Women Voters does not ever support candidates or issues. Our role is to educate the voters so to make educated decisions, but we do not, you make up your own mind after you listen to candidates night and other forums that Lexington and other leagues throughout the country offer. So we will start. One of the unopposed positions is Deborah Brown, who is the moderator of your town meeting. Deborah's not able to be here tonight. So we will go immediately to Melinda Walker, who is running for re-election for a 5-year term on the Housing Authority. Melinda, your opening statement and your closing statement, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I begin, I just wanted to say something. I am on the League of Women Voters, and I think that we all owe a great debt of gratitude to Margaret Copey because she did a yeoman's effort in organizing candidates night, and she did a wonderful job. Okay, so I'll start in here. The Federal Housing Act of 1937 enabled the creation of over 3,000 public housing authorities across the country. And the mission of the Act is to provide safe and decent housing for those who cannot afford housing in the private market. I'm running for re-election to the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority because I want to be able to continue to oversee the important work of our Housing Authority. The role of the board is to set policy, provide financial oversight, and to undertake personnel decisions with respect to the executive director. I've served on the board since 2003. I've completed the requirements of board member certification program, and I continue to attend training sessions offered by the Massachusetts chapter of the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials on issues of importance to public housing officials and staff. I am the Housing Authority's representative to the Lexington Housing Partnership, and I am the Community Preservation Committee. One of the concerns of affordable housing advocates across the state is the potential loss of deed restricted affordable units in developments funded through mass housing. As the mortgage expiration dates come close, owners may consider converting to market rate units. This was the case in Lexington in 2016 when the owners of a low-income cooperative, Pine Grove, were considering converting to a market rate condominium association. Through the efforts of the town manager, the Regional Housing Services Office, and the Lexington Housing Authority, Pine Grove was converted to a condominium association with affordable deed restrictions in perpetuity. This transaction included the conveyance of 5 low-income units to the Lexington Housing Authority. This project was highlighted in an article in Banker and Tradesman as one of the success stories of preserving long-term affordability of multifamily housing facing expiring use restrictions. I am looking forward to serving another year on the Lexington Housing Authority. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we welcome candidate for re-election for the Housing Authority. And now for school committee, we'll start with you, Scott. Can you please introduce yourself to the voters of Lexington?
Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Bogan, and I'm running for school committee. Thank you to the League of Women Voters today. Thank you for all coming up tonight. As I said, my name is Scott Bogan. I've lived in Lexington for 23 years with my family. My wife and I have raised 2 daughters who have gone completely through the Lexington public schools, from Bridge to Clark to LHS. When the kids were young, I was an at-home dad, and that led me to becoming a president of the Lex Fund, and then that led me to becoming a preschool teacher, where I taught for 13 years over at Hancock Nursery School. Currently, I'm serving my 5th year on town meeting as a Precinct 9 representative. So I've seen how the town functions in terms of budgeting and planning, and how the municipal issues commingle with the school issues. It's all in the details. And I'm a detail-oriented person who's willing to take a look at all sides of an issue from different points of view and hear everyone out and try to come up with an informed decision. And we have lots of decisions coming up in terms of our schools. We have a new high school coming up. We have redistricting probably. We have overcrowding to deal with. And there's always diversity, equity, and inclusion issues coming up, as well as school stress. So we have all these issues floating around, but people look at it as a daunting thing. I don't look at it that way. I think it's a great time to be here and be involved. It's a transition period. It's a time where we can come together as a community, put our minds together, and come up with some really great solutions and make things work for everybody, for every child in our community. I look forward to working with the superintendent and coming up with ideas and solutions to propel our kids into the future, to make sure that children of all abilities succeed in the Lexington Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Eileen J. is currently an incumbent on the school committee. She is finishing up her 1st term, and she will now tell you why she would like to serve a 2nd term. Eileen J.
Yes, hi. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and everyone for coming out here. I'm Eileen J. I'm running for re-election to the school committee. I've served for 1 term of 3 years. It seems like it's been a lot longer. Everybody tells me it's longer than that, but it's only been 3 years. I'm currently the chair of the committee. I am running again because I love doing this work. I really enjoy collaborating with people on helping the school children of Lexington. I'm very excited about some work we have coming up. We have, as Scott said, a wonderful new superintendent, and the school committee and the superintendent have big plans coming up. We have a lot of exciting efforts going forward. And one of those efforts is an initiative to develop an educational vision and a strategic plan for the Lexington Public Schools, which will involve a lot of community input. And I'm hoping people come and tell us what it is we want from our schools and how we want to educate our children. So you'll be hearing about that shortly. The work on diversity, equity, and inclusion is really a very important set of issues that we will be working on. A lot of really in-depth thinking and working with the community on those. We obviously have some big challenges coming up. Enrollment continues to grow. There will be a great need for looking at a high school project, and I think that's something where it's really going to involve a lot of community dialogue and engagement all the way through the process. So even though it's just beginning, I really urge people to start following along so these things don't become a big surprise at the end. So altogether, I'm just really excited for entering into a second term on the school committee, and I urge you to cast a vote for me, even though this is an uncontested race. I think everyone appreciates your support at the ballot box. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam. So we will not be taking questions for these two candidates, but I'm sure they would be more than willing to talk with you after the candidates might answer any questions you had. You may leave the stage, thank you. And Margaret will put up the names would all of the people who are running your school committee, both the contested and uncontested, the Board of Selectmen, please come up to the stage at this time so we don't have to do that transition. And we will first hear the statements from the two incumbents, one on behalf of Susie Berry, who is unable to be here this evening, but Sarah Allen has agreed to read a statement from Susie, and Joe Pata, who is also an incumbent. And they will speak first. Again, no closing statement, no questions for these two incumbents. You will hold those for the two contested candidates as well as then for the planning board. So if we could start with you, Sarah, if you would be kind enough to read the statement from incumbent Susie Berry. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. So unfortunately, Susie Berry is traveling out of state this evening and is unable to attend, and she had asked.
Can you put the mic a little closer to where you are?
Thank you. That is louder. So Susie, unfortunately, is out of the state this evening and has asked me to come read her statement in her place. My name is Sarah Bothwell Allen, and I'm a Precinct 6 neighbor of hers. On Monday, March 4th, I'm seeking re-election to the Board of Selectmen for a 3-year term. I was first elected to the Board of Selectmen in November of 2014 to fill a 16-month term and re-elected to the board in March of 2016. In May of 2016, I was elected chairman of the Board of Selectmen, a position I still hold. My involvement in town government goes back nearly 25 years to when I was first elected a town meeting member in Precinct 6, and also served as the treasurer of the Town Meeting Members Association. Over the years, I've been a member of several town committees, as well as active in the schools, scouting, and St. Bridget Church. Currently, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, I also serve as chairman of the Hanscom Area Towns Committee, HATS, and as a member of the Policy Manual Committee, the Fund for Lexington, the Cary Library Trustees, and the Cary Library Trustees Executive Board. In the coming year, I feel that it's important that the Board of Selectmen continue to work to keep Lexington affordable for all, embrace economic development in the commercial, industrial, and retail sectors, maintain fiscal responsibility as we deal with several capital projects, continue our work in making Lexington a welcome, inclusive, and safe community for all, address the need for affordable housing, not only for those with limited means, but those who may wish to downsize and stay in the town they love, and continue to advance the goals of the Sustainable Action Plan. We need to remember that Lexington is one community and do our best to listen, collaborate, and balance all requests so that all issues and interests are treated equally in the process and impact on taxpayers is contained. There is no lack of issues facing our town, and we are fortunate that Lexington is a strong community with dedicated and engaged residents and staff. Lexington is a community of people of all ages, cultures, races, and beliefs that when woven together reveal a beautiful tapestry. Lexington is truly vibrant, special, and unique from every angle. I'm a strong listener, and I value your concerns. I respectfully ask for your vote on Monday, March 4th, 2019. Thank you. I'm Susan.
Thank you very much. So that was Sarah Allen reading a statement from incumbent Susan Berry as to why Susie would like to be re-elected and contested to the board. To the board. And Joe Pata, who is also an incumbent. Joe, would you please reintroduce yourself to the board?
So good evening, I'm Joe Pata, and I'm also running for an uncontested 3-year seat to the Board of Selectmen. I've served for finishing my 6th year, my 2nd term, and 2 of those years I served as chair of the board. It's been my pleasure to serve our community. It's a community that is blessed with many volunteers to make many things possible that we otherwise couldn't afford. And it's my pleasure to look forward to serving you another term. You might wonder, why am I here tonight? It's uncontested, so I could be home resting. But the important thing is that we get a community that continues to be engaged in civil discourse, that comes together to address challenging questions and come to a communal response. I've been very proud of the efforts I had as a member of the board to keep us in that frame of mind, and I believe we will continue to do so. We're going to be faced with a lot of challenging issues over the next 5 to 10 years as we cope with growth and changes in our environment. I'm a strong supporter of making sure that when we do build and grow, that we're doing so in a sustainable way, building resilient buildings and infrastructure for our community, and that our community remains resilient. We are inclusive and we are welcoming, and we do so by making sure that everyone feels comfortable in coming together. So I'd like for you to come to my coffees. I have office hours on Wednesdays at 10 in the morning at the town office building, or 2 in the afternoon at the community center. Share with me your thoughts about what's important to you as we go forward. Town meeting is just a few weeks away. We have lots of issues confronting us, so please reach out. You can see information about me at joepato.org or joepato.com, and I'll be looking forward to your vote and talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, so very much. So those are the two, thank you. So those are the 2 residents who are running for the 3-year term on the Board of Selectmen. And now we will turn to the 2 gentlemen who are running for the 1-year term. This is as a result, I understand, of a vacancy by the incumbent was elected your representative. So she stepped down from the Board of Selectmen and left this 1-year seat. And the 2 men who are vying for it are Matthew Cohen and Mark Sandine. We will have a slightly different format. Again, they will introduce themselves to you with an opening statement, and then the league has drafted a question, which we will ask of these 2, and we invite your questions too for these 2 gentlemen to get to know them better. So there are members of the league who are in the hall with pieces of paper and pencils. Just raise your hand if you'd like to jot one down, and we will get that up here to the front to do that. And then we will have closing statements from these 2. So since the microphone is coming your direction, Matthew, we'll start with you. Your opening statement, if you would, please. Matthew Cohen.
Thank you all for being here. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this together, and particularly to I don't know where Margaret went. Margaret Kopi, thank you for putting all this together. I know that is not an easy thing to do. So I am a lifelong Lexington resident. I've lived here for 37 years, and my wife and I have 2 young children, a 9-year-old daughter, a 5-year-old son. I've had 4 generations of family live here in town. I have a bachelor's from Brandeis, master's from Harvard, PhD from Northeastern, all political science. I know I've said it before, I'm going to keep saying it and keep hearing it, but I'll proudly admit to being a political science nerd. And I've spent over 20 years working in government and on governmental issues and being engaged in our community. I've served on the Lexington Human Services Committee, worked at the Lexington Town Manager's Office, Senator Kennedy's Boston office. I've spent over 7 years at the Massachusetts State House as a research and budget director. I know how to make government work, and this unique background and knowledge is invaluable in taking on the role of selectman. The biggest issue I hear from residents is that it's difficult to afford to live here. This is a challenge to address in and of itself, but we face 2 related challenges that make this even harder to address. We're going to need to pay for an expensive new high school. And changes to federal tax laws mean residents can no longer deduct state and local taxes when paying their federal taxes, making affordability that much harder. And in sort of those kind of trying times, I think our town would benefit from having someone who knows how to develop innovative financial solutions and responsible budgets. I've spent my career doing exactly that, and it's a skill that I think is a really critical one. I will not compromise my children's future, waste a single dollar of my parents' money or your money, all that hard-earned money. So I believe my educational background is a major asset as well. My work is in comparative politics. I teach comparative politics, and my research focuses on figuring out what works and what does not, so we can make more effective decisions. So I hope to apply my knowledge, experience, and know-how to this position and serve our town. Look forward to answering questions. Thank you.
And Mark Sandini, would you let us know who you are and how you'd like to answer the question?
Yes, first I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event, and congratulations on your 99th year anniversary. My name is Mark Sandini. I'm a father and husband committed to creating a better future for our kids and for our town. I thrive on big challenges and finding win-win-win solutions for everyone. I do love Lexington. We're a diverse and welcoming community. We could do better, and we're committed to excellence in education and fiscal responsibility. But we're at a critical time right now in Lexington as we consider making the biggest investment of our generation, maybe up to $400 million in a high school, and I think it's time for experienced leadership. You may know me as the chair of Sustainable Lexington, or you may have read my column in the Colonial Times. And for those of you who are town meeting members, I've passed 8 town meeting warrant articles in the past decade. I've developed a plan to fund our new high school that is based on creating $24 million of new commercial tax revenue and delivering $2 million of operational savings from our high school. Saving money for me isn't an academic exercise, and generating new revenue isn't something that happens in budget meetings. We created the solar task force that put solar on our schools and on our composting facility. That's generated 45% of the town's municipal electricity demand and $600,000 in revenue a year. We pooled our buying power together to deliver 100% renewable electricity for 10,000 customers in Lexington. That's saving you $3 million in the first 2 years of the program. The Board of Selectmen asked me to help the town to set higher performance standards for our buildings. And as a result of that process, the school committee and the Board of Selectmen unanimously approved new healthy school designs with exceptional indoor air quality that are reducing sick days, improving cognitive performance, and will generate 100% of all their energy from solar power while saving the town $500,000 a year in operating costs. Those are the solutions we need at this time. Thank you.
I'm going to ask now one of the questions. I'm going to ask one of the questions that has come from one of the voters that's here. So I will start with you, Bruce, and we'll go down to Matthew. Can you choose one example of how you led or worked in a group to solve a problem in town or out of town that was initially viewed as unsolvable?
So just about all the problems I've worked on initially were viewed as unsolvable. So when we decided that we wanted to do healthier schools, we said, how is it possible to generate 100% renewable electricity how is it possible to make that school a net zero school? And the design team said we don't have enough room on the roof because we have to put air conditioning chillers on there, and we have to 30 seconds. Okay. So the bottom line is that by asking the right questions, by putting the right people in the room, you're able to find a way to solve these problems. We ended up with a school that is generating all of its own power and providing a much healthier environment for the students and staff. And we're doing it in savings of $400,000 a year for that school. So you wouldn't think all of those things are possible at the same time, but that's what we do.
Matthew, can you think of a project that you worked on in Lexington or in another work environment that was deemed unsolvable and you helped come to a solution?
So one project that I was asked to work on actually was dealing with what were called sober houses. So these are homes for people in recovery from addiction. And they're supposed to be places where people can go, and there's supposed to be no drugs, no alcohol, provides them that sober environment. And unfortunately, what we were finding was that this was not the case. That in reality, these homes, in fact, sometimes the owners were in fact selling these drugs and alcohol. But the problem was, such homes are protected by federal law under the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's not the intent of the act, but how it ended up working out. And so I was asked to figure out how can we address that. So I worked very carefully and very closely in collaboration with numerous government agencies and with members of the Massachusetts legislature and people in local communities across Massachusetts, actually, in order to develop a licensing program. And the goal of this program was essentially to start off the bad homes by creating a voluntary program to which the good homes could get licensed, and so far it seems to be working. So.
I'm now going to start with you, Matthew, and this is the question that League of Women Voters in Lexington came up with. Should the town pursue funding for the 25% design of the Bedford Hartwell Wood Streets in order to be eligible to apply for $30 million plus in federal funding? Do you support that strategy? Should the town seek funding for 25% design funding of the Bedford Hartwell Wood Streets in order to apply for $30 million plus in federal funding?
Yes, I believe that is a good idea. I think that we do need to be focusing on both that commercial development side. I've got extensive experience generating new revenue for areas, so I think this is a good path to pursue, and I think we need to be looking at how do we go about all the aspects of this, from traffic to the development itself. How do we generate the most revenue? Things like what type of buildings do we want? But in general, I think it is always a smart idea to be pursuing sort of state, federal funding. We always want to be looking at how do we bring in money to our community for as little an outlay as possible right now. Because in the long term, a short-term outlay can be a major advantage in the long term. So I think this is something that we should be pursuing. Yes.
Mark, do you think Lexington should pursue that funding of the design funding?
Yes, we want to be looking at how we can use federal funding, but we also want to take a look at whether it might be possible for us to do these types of things ourselves, because the federal funding tends to be associated with years of delays. So we have been looking at this area for something like 30 years. We definitely need to have some traffic solutions sooner than another 30 years before we get these solutions. But yes, if we can get federal funding, that's something we want to do. And the area needs to be addressed, as we pointed out. If we want to be raising commercial tax revenue from the Hartwell area, we want to be looking at that from a perspective of how we can alleviate some of the burden that the residential tax folks are paying to cover the cost of our schools. And that, I think, is one of the ideal areas that we should be looking at in terms of solving the traffic problem.
Mark, as you consider being a member of the Board of Selectmen, how much time do you plan to spend on selectmen duties each week?
Well, as chair of Sustainable Lexington, I'm probably pretty much a full-time job on Sustainable Lexington. I would imagine that the duties of Board of Selectmen might be even more. So I look at this as a full-time job. This is something that we're going, when I go to Board of Selectmen meetings, I see them staying until 10 o'clock at night, but that's only a part of the issue. The real part of the problem is that if you want to be effective in this, you're going to have to be working with people day in, day out in order to make these projects happen. For the solar project, we spent 7 years on that project. For the getting the net zero emissions plan, we put 3 years into that. On the sustainable building policy, we put 5 years into that. From my perspective, I'm here for the long haul. I'm going to do whatever it takes in order to make Lexington a successful place. And that's what I want to do. I put the time in. I'm going to continue to put the time in to make this a positive outcome for the town.
Thank you. Matthew, how much time do you plan to spend selecting advocates to your life?
As long as it takes. That's the easy answer. But I agree. This is something that one needs to treat as a full-time job. And you may ask, well, isn't that a challenge? Don't you have a full-time job? And I do. But that's okay. Because we need people like that. We need people with the passion, who want to serve and want to find these solutions. I want to put that over 20 years of governmental experience to use for Lexington. I'm deeply passionate about this. And you'll always find the time. We need a voice for people, young families, the young working family, people with young children. I think it's important that we have someone who can represent. There are people who currently do not have someone on the board of selectmen, sort of elementary school age children, preschool age children. I have both. So I think this job takes a full-time effort, and I'm looking forward, if I win, to putting in that effort.
If you just hold on the microphone, Matthew, a voter wants to know how many, let me see if I can first this down. What experience do you have with town government, and what time have you volunteered in the town prior to running for it?
So I've lived here my entire life, and I've been engaged in Lexington my entire life. My first political experience was here in Lexington when I volunteered for Jay Kaufman's first run for state representative. That was my first ever experience working in government at any level. In the past year alone, I've knocked on over 10,000 doors, been going door to door, learning about everything going on. I've been attending as many committee meetings that take place in Lexington as I possibly can, and I've been on the Lexington Human Services Committee. So I've been a part of that sort of level of government, and even more so, when I was asked, for example, by members of the Association of Black Citizens of Lexington to come and speak on behalf of efforts to increase diversity, for example, within the school system and to end discipline disparities. Well, I showed up, and at the time in that race, that was the only one who did, and I thought it was a critical thing to be doing. I was asked more recently, actually, by Valerie Overton to come and speak in favor of LGBT issues that Senator the school committee again, and I was glad to be able to do it.
Mark, we've heard of some of your volunteer activities. Are there others that you want to share with the voters before?
Well, sure. My experience with town meetings started probably about 11 or 12 years ago when we decided we wanted to pass the Stretch Energy Code, which was an idea that we could be better in Lexington with our energy use. That passed unanimously about 10 years ago. That got us into the Green Communities Act, which started generating revenue for the town. The town has gotten about $1 million in grants from Green Community Act, which is currently saving the town about $460,000 a year. But when you go through the things that we've been doing over the past 10 years, solar energy, getting net zero task force, community choice, all of these things have involved extensive involvement with financial communities, with the board of selectmen, with the town manager, with town staff, with transportation folks. I don't think there's tree committees. There isn't pretty much a town committee that we haven't worked with over the course of the last 10 years.
Thank you. So Mark, hold on the microphone and please describe to us what process do you recommend that the selectmen work with in terms of prioritizing school and municipal capital projects? How do you prioritize those needs?
Well, we spend about 75% of our town budget on school-related items, and that is what Lexington is in the business of. We support that. I think that's a wonderful thing to do. A lot of people don't realize that, but our municipal side of things is amazingly effective for the amount of money that they are getting. From that priority, I think we're doing the right thing as a town. From the splits that we need to be thinking about, as I mentioned before, is what's the split between commercial tax revenue and residential tax revenue. And I would suggest that we need to be raising new sources of commercial tax revenue. I think we have a plan to generate something over $24 million of new commercial tax revenue. This is not going to happen overnight. It's going to be something that's going to take about 10 years to do. But if we can do that at the time frame by the time we need a new school, we can find a way to fund that new school without raising people's residential tax rates.
And the question is, how do you prioritize capital projects in schools and municipal needs? No, that was the question. I just wanted to rephrase it before you answered it because I'm not quite sure that was, if you want to try again, Mark, because you didn't really discuss the capital element. This is for capital projects in terms of building and capital expenditures. Why don't you go ahead, Matthew, and then we'll come back and mark our numbers.
That's okay. Glad we got that straightened out. Okay. Thank you. So, to me, I agree with much of what was said there too. I think part of the big appeal of Lexington is the school system, and to me, it's more than just a policy question. My kids will be going to a new high school, so I think we need to be starting to plan right now for what we do with that high school. We can't wait. There's no future plan to set aside for it. We need to start planning now, just how we're going to pay for that school. And in terms of each individual project, how do you balance a school versus municipal? You have to look at the needs of every individual project. There is no one way to determine which project should come first. You have to look at the state of the building. You have to look at the need in the community. You have to evaluate. Can something be held on to slightly longer? You have to look further than that even. What does it take in order to save money in the long run? Will it cost more if we delay on one project versus another, even if the need might be slightly greater for one project versus another? So the answer on exactly which one you go with under any circumstance is entirely based on that circumstance, but I would tend to lean toward school projects coming first.
So I apologize for not being clear that the prioritization is between school and municipal capital projects. What process should the town use to make that decision?
So the process that the town should use to make a decision in terms of prioritizing municipal and school, one of the things you think about when you're doing municipal, we have safety-related items, police and fire, and we need to be thinking first for the safety and security of the residents, and then on top of that, we're going to be looking at schools, which is, as I said before, the business of Lexington. So that is what makes Lexington the place it is, and we need to be making sure that we're providing the appropriate capital for our schools.
Thank you. And the last question before your closing statement, so we can get on with the planning board, which we must do before we are evicted. This being the anniversary of the Parkwood shootings, as a selectman, do you see any role for the board of selectmen in establishing some kind of a policy that keeps the schools and the community safe? And we'll start with you on that. Actually, we can start with Matthew. Thank you, Matthew. So the question is safety of the community, just overall, what the selectmen can do in taking the role there.
The safety of the community, honestly, is arguably the highest priority of the Board of Selectmen. It is, schools are largely for the school committee, planning issues for the planning committee. There is no really higher level. I'm very proud to have been endorsed by the Lexington firefighters. It's a wonderful thing to get to have. And they recognize my commitment to giving and making sure that we provide the equipment and the necessary safety tools for our firefighters and for our citizens. And so, in terms of the gun issue, I think it's fairly obvious that America has a substantial problem with guns, and I think that Lexington should be taking very careful consideration of how schools are built. When we build this new high school, one of the top priorities needs to be safety. It's one of the biggest flaws in the current high school. All these separate buildings, which make no sense based on weather, of course, but make no sense for safety either. And again, this is a very personal question for me. My kids will be at those schools. I can't tell you how critically important it is to me that we do whatever it takes to keep them safe, and that will be a top priority for me.
So first I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for saying enough to census gun violence on the first anniversary of the Department of Justice. The Board of Selectmen, our role is to ensure the safety of our citizens, as I said before, and there's a lot of things that we can be doing in terms of these issues of gun violence. It's not just shooters, it's also suicide. There's a lot of things that we need to be doing in terms of having conversations about stress, about bullying, about making this place a safe and welcoming place for our citizens. As selectmen, we set the tone for that, and that is how we all feel safe as a community. We've done a lot of good things in that area. There's more that we can be doing. It's an ongoing discussion, and I fully support everything that we can do in order to set the tone that you should be welcome and safe in Lexington.
And Mark, now can you give the voters your 1-minute closing statement on your campaign for selectman, please?
So I've lived in Lexington for 35 years. My wife, Lisa, and I have raised our 2 children here. They've benefited enormously from the great school system that we have, from preschool all the way through LHS. I teach several science classes a year at Diamond. I judge the science fair at the high school. I'm a data-driven person, but I'm motivated by the heart. About 10 years ago, a small group of friends of mine and I formed the Interfaith Garden in town with volunteers from a lot of diverse cultures in town. Our goal was to grow healthy food for those neighbors of ours who were less fortunate, but more importantly, our goal was to grow a vibrant community, relationships, and to bring people together working on common goals. I know how to get big things done in Lexington. The projects I've worked on have made a difference for Lexington, made it a better place, and generated millions of dollars in revenue. As a selectman, I'd like to be using those skills and experience to address the broader challenges we have as a community, make this a better Lexington, welcoming and inclusive, respecting the diversity of all cultures that make us stronger together. Thank you.
And Matthew Cohen, your closing statement, please.
I grew up here in Lexington, and I've worked hard to understand what our town wants and needs. I've knocked on over 10,000 doors. I've served and been attending meetings of Lexington committees. I've met with the cultural groups and people across the political spectrum. But I've not only seen what's needed, I have a vision on how to move forward. I believe it's time to balance existing ways with new ideas. We need a long-term plan and vision for this town, and we need to spend our tax dollars wisely and generate new revenue. I have over 20 years of government experience, learning to do just that. I have researched and formulated ideas on all the pressing issues this town faces, not just 1 or 2. I see that our board would benefit from having a greater diversity of voices. I can bring that one of the critical perspectives that's lacking, that of the young working family. My wife and I both have full-time jobs, and I would be the only selectman with children in elementary and preschool. I believe strongly in evidence-based policy making. It's what I'm trained to do. I want to put that training to use for Lexington. I promise to keep listening, to keep working hard. I ask for your vote on March 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. So on March 4th, when you go to the polls, you'll be voting for one of these 2 people for the 1-year unexpired term on the board of selectmen. Okay. Pardon me, we're having this fight. We're coming to the bench. So the two candidates for the planning board running for a 3-year term are the incumbent Nancy Corcoran-Ronchetti and Robert Peters. Nancy is not here this evening. We did not know she was not able to be here, but apparently she has a conflict. So that makes it a different format than we had planned to do before. It's really not fair to either Nancy or Bob to be able to do the questions, and the league has a policy about how we handle it when it's not representative, especially if we didn't know it wasn't coming. So we thank you, Bob, for being here. We would ask you to introduce yourself to the voters of the town of Lexington, why you want to vote to be a member of the planning board, and while you're doing that, we will decide how many questions you will field after you make your opening statement. Thank you. Bob.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen Hardy, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and Myra Kobe for hosting this evening. I'm Robert Peters. I've lived in Lexington for 16 years, and for the past 15 at Drummerboy Homes in Precinct 7. I previously served on town meeting in 2006 through 2011, and I'm currently serving as a member of the Board of Commissioners of the Lexington Housing Authority. In addition, I have served as the board president for the Drummer Boy Homes Association for the past 9 years. Clearly, that track record indicates that I have a commitment to housing. Professionally, I'm working as the Director of Administration and Finance for a small social service nonprofit in Somerville, and prior to that, I had the privilege of working in the Patrick administration as Director of Driver Licensing. The Planning Board is arguably the most important role in local government. Decisions made reflect the makeup of the town for the next 100 years or more. It is a highly technical working committee which needs to be consistent and ready to build consensus within the community and with town meeting for what we collectively want the town to look like. I have a strong commitment to housing, as I think my roles have indicated, and both strictly affordable and at a variety of prices. I think economic diversity of a variety of housing options is a positive for the community and is an equally important aspect of diversity. If we do nothing, we will have more very large single-family houses with very large price tags and a number of single-story strip malls making up our commercial industrial sector, and I think we can do better. If I'm elected to the Planning Board, I look forward to working hard to build consensus for Lexington of the future that will make us proud. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for coming tonight, and I ask for your vote on Monday, March 4th. I'm Robert Peters. Thank you.
Bob, thank you. I think that where we will draw the line here in terms of fairness to Nancy, who's not able to be here, I will present Bob with a question that the Lexington League came up with. It has to do with the warrant article that's on the town meeting. But we will not take questions from the voters. Feel free to go up to Bob afterwards and ask him those questions so that you can find the answers in that forum. So, Bob, there is an Article 39 on the warrant for the annual town meeting, which would provide for site plan review to the extent allowed by law for exempt uses. These tend to be educational uses, religious purposes, and childcare. This is under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 3, sometimes referred to as the Dover Amendment. So do you support that article passing in the law to allow the Lexington to have that power of site plan review under that statute?
Thank you for the question. I was at the Planning Board hearing last night on this article, and I do support this warrant article. I think that limited site review is all that's available under the statute, but I think that it provides one thing that I think came up at the hearing, which was very germane, is by virtue of having it subject to a hearing, the neighbors, the abutters, will be provided with public notice, and I think that it gives them the opportunity to know that something is going on in their neighborhood. There are limits under the statute as to what Planning Board is able to do, but I think it is a good sense addition to the toolbox. I think that the town meeting ought to support it, so I am supportive of this article.
Thank you very much. Margaret, do you want to do a closing statement from Bob, or how do you want to handle that? Okay, if you have one prepared, we'd be glad to listen to that.
Sure.
Apologies for the lack of advance notice.
Thank you. It's getting late, so I won't keep anyone later than necessary. I'm Robert Peters. I would be honored to have your support and vote for the Lexington Planning Board on March 4th. It's a very important role for the town, and I think that I bring a valuable perspective to the board and would enhance the board's credibility, help build consensus among stakeholders, and really improve the process. We have incredibly important issues regarding zoning development and what Lexington will look like and what it will feel like in the future. I have a track record of listening to stakeholders and working to build consensus among them. With your votes, I will be able to bring these skills and experience to the Lexington Planning Board, and together we'll build the Lexington that we want. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob. So some housekeeping notifications. This has been taped this evening by LexMedia, and it will be rebroadcast between now and the March 4th election, so watch their schedule. And if you have friends who missed it, be sure and let them know that that will be happening. Also on election night, Dawn McKenna has reserved Lexington Depot for all the election night festivities. So put that on your calendar, the high point of the Lexington social season, I'm sure. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Monday, the 4th of March. Please vote. The League reminds you that democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you so much for being here tonight.